But at any rate, yeah.
Okay. Before you get to this, I want to ask you, when you got here, it was 69, and you went to Johnson C. Smith. What was Charlotte like? What was that area, Black Charlotte, like?
Black Charlotte was a very cohesive group of people. A lot of folks would have you to believe, like Tommy Robinson's son, Wilmo, he would have you believe ain't nothing like the West Side. That's bullshit. The West Charlotte kind of got all of this by default because this community, University Park and West Charlotte High School, they were designed and made for black folk. The original West Charlotte was Northwest School of the Arts. That's where my daddy taught in 44, 45.
I never knew that.
And in 1954, expecting the Supreme Court ruling, Charlotte decided, let's get them colored people a really nice school and they won't want to come to Myers Park. And so they built West Charlotte High School, which was a class act, and some of your grandparents would tell you that West Charlotte was the stick. They had cosmetology, they had all kind of vocational training, and their students in the regular academic courses were bright, going off to colleges and coming back and being teachers and professionals. And so Beatties Ford Road became Beatties Ford Road by default because urban renewal moved the black folk out of the center city. And many of them came northwest, but many of them started the desegregation of formerly white communities like Clanton Park. And when black folks started moving in Clanton Park, the white people ran to Hampshire Hills. No, they didn't. They ran to Hidden Valley. And then when black folk, in the first one was Dr. Raleigh Bynum, a local optometrist, and the first black optometrist in Charlotte, he bought a house in Hidden Valley, and he tells the story of how his neighbors across the street welcomed him to the neighborhood, said, "We're so glad you're here." And a week later had a for sale sign on their front yard. And they ran to Hampshire Hills off the plaza. And once they got to Hampshire Hills, and then black folks started moving, they said, damn, we can't outrun them, so we may as well, accept it. Now, Hampshire Hills and all that, Eastbrook Woods, they're all predominantly black now. But a lot of the white folks who were still there, many of them are aging out and dying out, but they didn't run anymore. They said, it's the new world. We may as well get used to it. So that's kind of how that pattern of migration went. And then, of course, in the late 70s and early 80s, as black economic prowess started to elevate, none of those folks who left the black community, and I say the best, and it took a village to raise a child, the best of the village left the village, and the least of the village to fend for themselves while they rolled off to Myers Park and River, off of Providence Road, and other more affluent communities, Tiga K, to emulate white folks at 80% of their AMI, average median incomes. So the economic structure was never the same. We just went over there and played like we had it. And as a result, the neighborhood, which I call the village, degenerated to what folks will now call the hood. Well, if you ever say, I'm going to the hood and you're talking to me, go to hell. Because the hood is not a term of endearment. The hood is what folks fear now because they see a lot of stereotypes about the hood. But if you really immerse yourselves and get to know the hood, you will find that the hood is desperately lacking that very same strata of folk who left us to go and emulate other people who didn't want you there in the first place, but they would smile and grin at you, and two weeks later, they got a for sale sign in their front yard. So we now come back to the village and to get our hair did and go to church.
Okay, what do you think about? This is kind of off topic.
Oh, that's all right.
Back during that time, the 60s and 70s, when we were leaving the village, what was the thought process of black people as far as when we moved to Hampshire Hills or moving into Hidden Valley, into these white neighborhoods? Was it to...
I'm going to put it to you in a song. And we're moving on up.
Okay. But this area was prominent.
Yeah, it was.
So why was it moving up if we have black businesses, black everything? Why was it like... Because now we leave the hood because... Or people leave the hood because, like what you said, it turned into the hood. But back then, why would we leave that?
Because we're moving on up.
Okay.
But the other part of that, in addition to moving on up, was that your granddad and them would tell you the general premise was, for those who left, white man's ice is colder, his water is wetter, and therefore I want to be where the ice is cold, the water is wet, the sun shines all day, and I can walk. You go out here now, 15 years ago, you walking down Beatty's Ford Road and you got your pocketbook on your shoulder, you know, there's not a good chance, but there's the potential that you're going to have a problem. Now we got Becky Sue running all through the neighborhood, a ponytail just swinging, pushing a baby, and ain't nobody saying a damn thing to her that ain't bothered her. And there was a woman over on Matheson Avenue. You know where St. Luke Baptist Church is? Well, a good friend of mine's son lives on Rachel Street, which comes out to Matheson Avenue there. And he was walking to the store up on Statesville, across from there in Double Oaks. And this little white woman was out jogging, and she saw him coming, and she went across the street and kept jogging. He said, I just do be damned. Another instance, he was walking the neighborhood, and this white woman came out of a house, saw him walking. Next thing you know, police car done rolled up on him, talking about, who are you, what are you doing in this neighborhood? And he asked, what do you mean? He said, well, your neighbor over there called the police, said that there was a strange man walking in the neighborhood. Needless to say, he said some words like motherfucker and piece of shit and all kind of stuff he used to explain, I grew up in this neighborhood. She's the fucking one who's the newcomer. But that's happening all over the place now. But now they're finding places like McCrory Heights are nice places to live. They always were. McCrory Heights, like the center city before Beatty's Ford evolved like it did. Brooklyn, 1st Ward, 3rd Ward, what was the other one? 1st, 2nd Ward. Those are all black neighborhoods, prominent black neighborhoods, with the combination of the best and the least. You know, if you had a bad kid and he did something down at the park, before he got home, somebody had either told your mom and daddy or whooped his ass before he left the park. So when he gets home, mom and dad already know, they ain't even got a phone. So, you know, we have to take a lot of responsibility, CJ, a lot of responsibility for who we are and where we are, and call it's a terrible pun, call a spade a spade.
For sure. I want you to explain this, what's going on in this picture, and after that, I want to open it up to everyone else to join in on the community.